Hello, today I'm going to take you to a very simple tutorial. In this video I will create and configure an Azure Data Lake Storage, and then I will use Talend 7.1 to upload files onto it. Step 1, we will create a new ADLS in our Azure portal. In our Azure portal we will create a new resource, search for Data Lake Storage Gen 1. We will create that and fill up the form according to our own details. Here I'm choosing also not to have encryption, just for this example. I filled it up with my region and my domain name. I chose example and I'm creating it. It takes a few seconds until it's created. Once it's created, you can navigate through all resources and find your ADLS. Here is mine, named example. Then I'm going to capture the URL for further use. The URL is going to be always example.azuredatalakestore.net. Step 2, we will create an Azure Active Directory service principal. Search for your app registrations and create a new application registration. Fill up the form on the right. I gave the application name example app and choose web application API. The URL in this scenario is not important, and create. Once the application is created, copy your application ID and save it for later configuration. Now we will create an authentication key for this application. Click on settings inside the application. Select keys, give a name and a duration for the key and save it. This key can only be viewed once. Once you go away from the screen, you will never be able to get this key again, so copy it and save it. For the third step, we will have to get the tenant key, which is also known as the directory ID. Search for your Active Directory and click on Properties. After you click on Properties, you will be able to see the directory ID, copy it and save it for later. Next step, we will associate the servers principal that we have created with the Azure Data Lake Storage that we have created. Navigate to your Data Lake Storage you have created and click on Data Explorer. Then click on Access. Click on Add and then look for your application name. My application name was example app. Select that. Select the permissions that you want and click OK. The result should be that now your application has assigned permissions here. For the last part, we will create and configure a Talend job and upload file onto our ADLS. In Talend Studio, I've created a new standard job. I've placed the HDFS connection component in a standard job, and then inside the configuration of the component I'm choosing Hortonworks and I'm choosing ADLS, not HDFS or Web HDFS. Now I need to configure the parameters to connect to my Azure Data Lake Storage. Going back to the credentials that we've kept from when we configured the ADLS, we will use the URL, we will use the application ID, which in this case is the client ID, the authentication key is the client key, and the tenant ID will be used for the token endpoint, where we will just place it here where I've put this X's. As you can see, I already configured the connection. The next step will be to put files onto ADLS. So in a put component, I'm going to use this connection. I'm going to point it to a folder, which in this case the configuration will be to take all of the files from this folder, and I'm going to run the job. Once I run the job, you can see that all of the files from my local folder have been uploaded to my example Data Lake Storage. Last thing I wanted to show you is the difference between connecting to ADLS in a Talend standard job, and connecting to ADLS in a big data batch job. In the second case I'm showing, I've created a new big data batch job here using Spark. And here the connection is going to be slightly different. I'm going to use this Azure FS configuration component and not HDFS. Inside there, I'm going to choose Azure Data Lake Storage and not Azure Blob Storage. And now I don't have to connect this component to anything else. The configuration is pretty much the same, except here instead of the entire URI, we're just going to use example, the name of my Data Lake Storage account. And then in a T-file input, we will point to this storage connection and just read the file as it is. I just wanted to make it clear that I'm running this Spark job locally. I'm not connecting it into any Spark cluster. Perhaps we'll do that in future tutorials. In this case, I'm running a local Spark job. I run the job, and the result is that the limited file I had on ADLS is printed out. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned for future tutorials in my channel.